was on Facebook this morning and I was observing a few comments, as I am wont to do. And it was interesting because it was this guy talking about tiger pounces downwards in Xing Qi. And he was doing a really great explanation, which is unusual because, to be honest, not many people know Xing Qi, and not many people actually, if they do know something, ever put anything out. So I was super impressed that this guy was demonstrating what wedging and what the bows and structure were. And there's a lot of people kind of giving him a hard time about it. So I guess this is sort of my rebuttal. The main comment that kind of is setting me off is that it was overly complicated. And I can agree with that. It is overly complicated. Internal martial arts are bloody hard, man. But the thing is that it's not that you learn everything at once. And the thing about that is that you learn one thing at a time, you do it very well, and then you move on. And it's time to move on when those things become natural. That's the whole Taoist part of it, if you will, is that you want everything to be natural. So if somebody's telling you some kind of crazy thing like, oh, I don't know, Dantian moves first, it can't be something that's always what you're concentrating on. If it is, then you never really move beyond it. The idea is that you understand it intellectually, and then once the mind gets something, has a good idea of what's going on, then the body follows it. And once the body adapts to whatever the vibe is, it starts to do it naturally. And then ideally the mind becomes soft and observational. And those observations start to teach the mind again. So for instance, Dantian moves first, my body starts doing it naturally, I can relax the mind and just observe what's going on. And I start to maybe notice that power ripples from the center, whatever. Or that when I move quickly, it seems like my joints, the space in my joints opens and contracts. Super cool. That observation becomes something you study and you research, and it becomes something in your mind. Then the mind again teaches the body from there. So if you have a teacher, you're in a really good situation because that teacher can give your mind something to work on to teach your body. And then when you have an observation, you can go back to your teacher and say, hey, I was noticing this. What does that mean? And then the parlay can happen, right? So I guess I wanted to talk about the complexity more than anything else. It's hard. And I don't mean like it's sort of hard, it takes some time. I mean, like for instance, in my own case, I've had many different teachers and all of their information is sort of stacked. Some of it's exactly the same. Some of it is the same thing with different points of view, or rather different words being used to describe it. It's all metaphor and allegory and such. And some of it is actually different. So you end up with all these different principles you're supposed to be obeying. And it's a very complex mix of everything eventually. It's this huge web. But it's worth it. I mean, the idea of just being bigger, faster, and stronger than your opponent is weak, man. It's just weak. Not only are you never going to pull that off, there's always somebody bigger or stronger or faster than you, but your body's going to let you down sooner than you think. A lot sooner than you think. It's really great when you're 20 and you feel immortal. Double that age and you're going to be in a different situation entirely. Triple it, quadruple it. There's masters out there that have got real skills into their aged years, and it sure as hell isn't because they kept getting bigger, stronger, and faster. It's because they took the time to take this complexity and do something with it until it is absolutely natural to them. The mind teaches the body, then the body teaches the mind. Now, the other part of this whole complexity thing is the integration and separation of the mind and body. When we start martial arts, the body is uncoordinated. And we see it as a dual thing. It's something separate from our minds. And that just, it's understandable because it's what we're taught. It's the way we work. But the thing is, it's not true. The mind and the body are not two separate things. They're one thing. All of that makes up you. So at the beginning of martial arts, that's what you're training. You're training how to get the mind and body to become a single entity, a mind-body, if you will. Now, that takes a long time. And that means that everything's been integrated, the mind moves, the body moves, right? Everything just happens basically simultaneously. So this is the conglomeration. This is going from Jing, the flesh, the body, to Qi, the relationship between the body and the mind. Okay, so when the body and the mind are in a really strong, powerful, connected, intimate relationship, you have qi. But then what? In the three treasures, of course, the next thing is shun, right? Translates as spirit all the time, all that kind of crap. But shun means more than just spirit. It's including all of those mental capacities. It's your mind, your intellect, your emotions, your heart. It's your spiritual self, if you will, the part of you that observes you thinking, right? The observer. It's all of those things. So, like, what does that mean? So once you've got the mind and the body together, eventually the mind and body have to separate again. And that's the training of the shun. That means that the qi is strong. No matter what I do, my mind and body act together. They act connected. And then, if the shun becomes strong, while the body is in motion and doing those things, the mind can do other stuff. When I've been training, I mean, the last few years, what I've been training has been Shu Guoming stuff, right? George Shu. He was very kind to me after we fought. And he downloaded a lot of stuff into my poor little head. But all of his stuff starts there. Everything I've learned from him has more to do with the mind re-separating itself from the body. So it's doing something different than the body, rather than just a continuation of the same. Think about it in yin-yang. If things don't reverse in yin-yang, they're not natural. So a martial artist who becomes a great fighter because he's big and strong and fast, naturally flexible, he doesn't think perhaps to start integrating his mind in some way. Because it doesn't matter, right? Strategy becomes, you have longer reach, stay away. It's not reading philosophy. It's not looking at the art of war or the 36 stratagems as a way to duel with people one-on-one. That becomes a problem. That's why no qi. And at the same time, on the internet, I'm talking to you, internet, keyboard martial artists have a lot of time on their hands to only think and not practice. And that becomes a problem, a big problem. That's where Qigong Bing, the deviation of Qigong practice, or basically going crazy, madness, starts to happen. And that's a distortion of what is real and what you think is real. And I mean, we're all in that position, right? We all, none of us see reality exactly for what it is, because quite simply, that's enlightenment. And I mean, who among us can claim that, right? Walking the dog. So the thing is that if you never do anything physical, if you never cross hands with somebody, how are you ever going to have strong qi either? It's an integration of relationships between the mind and the body at the very low level, and between you and reality at a very high level, a very esoteric or internal level. Without that, what have you got? Punches and kicks if you're a Jing guy, if you're a flesh guy, and a lot of bravado and bullshit if you're just an intellectual about it. I mean, come on. It's all about balance. I mean, I just wrote a note on Facebook about balance. And this is why, because it's been driving me batty to see people just not trying to balance. You know what I mean? Anyway, hopefully this makes some sense and helps some people with their martial arts training. Keep at it. It's worth it.